The Victoria and Albert Museum in London is playing host to an extraordinary exhibition of Indian design and craftsmanship. The Maharajas show features paintings, textiles, jewellery and more from both Indian and Western artisans. It places these artefacts in a historical timeline which shows the development of Indian culture over 200 years.
The exhibition, of course, is called Maharajah, which is a very evocative term. The idea is to explore the world of the Maharajas, of Indian kings, and what kind of social, political and economic situations created them, to explore the fact that they were not just one person to be known by one identity, but that they were very different people. One of the key themes of the exhibition is to explore their role in creating India's rich cultural heritage and in preserving it.
The position of power and influence that the Maharajas held made them a dominant cultural force throughout India's history.
The Maharaja's lifestyle was very much a product of what his role was. His role meant that he had to be splendid in person because so much of power is manifested through personal splendour. He had to be a patron of the arts, he had to be a patron of music, he had to have splendid things around him, he had to promote scholars, he had to promote religious institutions.
One of the recurring themes of the exhibit is the Maharaja's obsession with precious gems, clearly illustrated by the stunning collection on show.
Gems have a real significance in India, and most of the Maharajas really appreciated the quality and the worth of gemstones.
The gems they wore really represented their wealth and their power. They wore their treasuries around their necks. Whether they were ordering from Cartier or whether they were ordering from their own court jewelers, they always led taste and were always very discerning patrons.
But it's quite interesting from a Western point of view. We're used to seeing gems that really sparkle because they're cut. That's not the aesthetic in India. The quality is the gem itself. So often they're uncut or just polished. And you'll see some remarkably large diamonds. And you'll see a wonderful sword that we have on display that was given by the Maharaja of Jaipur to Edward VII to mark his coronation in 1903. Again, studded with 719 diamonds.
As we follow the history of the Maharajas, we see new influences emerge, most notably those of European jewellers.
We've got to remember, and what's exciting in the exhibition, is that as they turn towards the West, they start to have their jewellery made in the West. So they move from traditional Indian jewellery to jewellery by Van Cleef or Cartier or Chaumet or Boucheron.
Perhaps the most famous commission is that for Bhupinder Singh of Patiala, who in 1925 arrived in Paris with great crate loads of gems. He gave half of them to Boucheron and half of them to Cartier.
Jacques Cartier makes a number of pieces of spectacular jewellery, unsurpassed in scale really, for the Maharaja of Patiala based on gems provided by the Maharaja. And the centre of this great commission is the Patiala Necklace, multiple strands of beautiful, substantial diamonds, with 3 Burmese rubies and a 235-carat yellow diamond in the middle. And it was a tour de force of jewellery made in 1928, which has been celebrated ever since it was made.
The chronological nature of the exhibition serves to highlight the complex relationship India has had with its various invaders.
Indian design is constantly changing based on new invaders, new influences that are coming into India. And so you see that in the earlier sections, which is a very strong Mughal influence. And then when you, as in the 18th century, in the 19th century, very, very strong Western influence, specifically British influence in Indian design. Britain and India have had a very long relationship, and much of this material culture is a product of that interchange of ideas.
What happens is that from the late 18th century onwards, we see the British gradually coming to dominate India. The net result of that is that the Indian princes are Western educated and they become Westernized. Once they've been through Western schools, they come back and they move out of their traditional palaces and into Western-style palaces, which have dining rooms and dressing rooms and billiard rooms and everything according to a Western way of living.
Most of the rulers, they found it quite difficult. They had to have almost a dual identity. On the one hand, the Raj, the British loved them to dress up in all their jewels and appear as the exotic subjects of the Raj, but at the same time they were expected to be educated in a Western way and be the consummate English gentlemen. So they often had to negotiate these different identities, and some of them refused to do so, really, but many of them adopted Western lifestyles and they started to build Western-style palaces for entertaining all the British. And also the wives would become celebrities. They had their photographs taken by Cecil Beaton.
And of course this influence has a very, very strong political element to it. Because once you're consuming the material culture of a particular country, you're accepting ideological sort of oneness with them.
A few princes resented the westernizing process, absolutely, and some of them were more nationalistic in their output. But on the whole, I think Indian princes admired what the West could give them. And many of them loved coming to the West, and all of that offered, all that Europe had to offer that India couldn't give them, they really appreciated.
The exhibition is a must-see and will run from October until the middle of January.
It seems that everybody knows what a Maharaja is, and we're hoping that they come in because that is a wonderfully evocative image, certainly. And when they leave, they realise that there were individuals, some of whom did splendid work for their people, and then they become real people. We hope they leave with that idea, and of course, fabulous jewels are always a good thing.